Uh, I'll call upon Beda Baranbal to now talk about orbit and adnexal injuries. Beda Baranbal is a consultant who has retired from the armed forces and is at practicing at Lucknow now. He has been posted at Srinagar and has a lot of experience in managing ocular trauma cases.
First of all, I must thank Brigadier Shamsundar for giving me an opportunity to talk in front of you. So my topic is orbital and adnexal injuries. As the man has evolved from the earlier age to this age, the mode of ocular injuries have also changed from the stones to fighting to sports injuries to burns and the present age, the trauma because of the war and proxy war injuries. Orbital and adnexal injuries are not uncommon. They are common in war, proxy war, road traffic accidents, sports-related injuries, and often they are associated with multiple injuries in other parts of body also. And because of that, sometimes the patient is unconscious or has severe injuries on the other parts of the body. The complete evaluation may not be possible. Ocular protection by protective helmets and goggles is of utmost importance, and we share our experience of managing 164 orbital injury cases during last 25 years, which includes war or proxy war cases during the Kargil war in 1999-2000, our experience at Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa in 2008-2009, and at Udhampur in 2013 to 2016. Bow and arrow injuries, we don't expect these things nowadays. And see, I got a patient in Congo. This was the bow and arrow injury. And see, total eyeball and the orbit. Obviously, nothing is left in the eye. You can't save it. But these are not uncommon. Similarly, during the wars and the proxy wars, because of the splinters, artillery, you can have multiple foreign bodies inside the eyeball, in the orbit, and other parts of the body. See the number of foreign bodies you can see. These may disorganize the eyeball in addition to lodging in other parts of the orbit and the body. Another case is disorganization of the eyeball because of the orbital foreign bodies. Few more cases. These are not uncommon. And for the scientific management of orbital injuries, the best and the minimum thing which is required is a CT scan. It not only localizes the foreign body but also gives the track how the foreign body has entered the eyeball or has reached or lodged into the brain. Sometimes the patient is fortunate and we are also fortunate, like in this case, a large foreign body is lying, but luckily the eyeball is intact. Foreign body is located in the posterior part of the, just lying outside the sclera. Obviously, removal is much more difficult than leaving it there, because most of the foreign bodies, artillery shells, they are inert and sterile, and removal may be difficult and more damaging to the eyeball rather than the person is seeing there. This was a young Sajad, 21 years old Sajad soldier. During the Kargil war, he came. He said that he is not seeing. In fact, he was told that he is a makra. He doesn't want to work and he is scared of the war. But he was not seeing. And we did an X-ray. We saw a foreign body lying in the apex of the orbit. And to our surprise, the optic nerve was transected by the splinter. Eyeball was absolutely fine except for the relative afferent pupillary defect. Eyeball was perfect, but you can't help it. Once the optic nerve is cut, nothing can be done. Similarly, one case he came with bile temporal hemanopia, and You can see the track of the foreign body and the optic chiasma has been damaged because of this splinter in the foreign body. But this was a very strange case. This case came during the Kargil war, and because a large number of casualties were there on that day, CT scan of this patient was not that right. He had injured eyeball, other parts were working perfectly all right. He didn't get a priority for the CT scan. We took an X-ray, and based on the X-ray we took the patient for evacuation. To our surprise, the foreign body which was being seen on the X-ray, we could not localize and remove during the evisceration. Then we took him for a CT scan. We showed that the foreign body was partly intracranial and partly intraorbital. And we removed it with the help of neurosurgeon. In fact, the neurosurgeon said that if I could have removed during the evisceration process, then patient might have died because of the coning. So sometimes we are lucky, the Almighty is lucky, He saves the patient. All these things happen. This is a case where the medial rectus muscle has been damaged, and you can see the splinter damage in the medial rectus muscle. Lids and adduction injuries are quite common. They may be associated with other parts of the injuries. The center one is a injury because of the deer bite. And management of orbital foreign bodies, and is a comprehensive initial assessment is required, because as I told you earlier, it may be associated with that injury in the other parts of the body, maybe abdomen, head, legs and all those. And the team has to work and first evaluate the patient, and based on the evaluation, an integrated treatment plan has to be made, because this helps to decrease the total number of surgeries. Otherwise, once you have to operate, then surgeon has to operate, then reconstructive surgeon will come into place, then maxillofacial surgeon. Best is a total team evaluation, because it helps to reduce the total number of surgeries, better resource utilization and better results. The basic principles of managing orbital foreign bodies are multidisciplinary approach, and first and the foremost, as Jan Pariyar also told, first is sterilization of the patient for any life-threatening conditions, and patient has to be hemodynamically stable before we proceed on to the management of the orbital or the eye injury. Then for the scientific management, CT scan is required. Then medical management, the standard of PT, antibiotics and pain management. Then surgical intervention, the globe repairs have to be done immediately. Orbital fractures and other things we will discuss in the subsequent slides. Then follow-up and complication management in form of infection control, visual rehabilitation, especially for the people who are permanently visually handicapped. The visual rehabilitation is important. Last but not the least is the psychological support. A person losing a leg or eye and all those needs a psychological assessment and support is required. Ocular adnexal injuries, when and who should intervene? With the coming in of oculoplastic surgeons and the reconstructive surgeons, intervention by oculoplastic surgeon may be required. The eyelid injuries, which can be dealt by general ophthalmologist who doesn't have much exposure to the oculoplastic injury. The eyelid defects not involving the eyelid margin. Then superficial eyelid lacerations involving just the skin on the orbicularis muscle. Partial thickness lid lacerations, and the full thickness lid lacerations less than 25% of the total lid. They can be managed by a general ophthalmologist. But if the eyelid laceration is within the 6 to 8 millimeters of medial canthus, or involving medial and lateral canthus, or associated with ptosis, or there is a damage to the lacrimal duct or lacrimal sac, any injury which is involving the LPS muscle or the tarsal plate, or if the full thickness defect is more than 25%, then help of an oculoplastic surgeon should be taken. Canalicular injuries in particular needs to be managed by a oculoplastic surgeon, because management by stents improves the cosmetic as well as the functional results, and it prevents damage to the canalicula. Orbital fractures, they need support. We need support for the management by the oculoplastic or maxillofacial surgeons, whichever is available and confident. We have seen different types of fractures. This is the lateral orbital wall fracture. This is lateral and inferior orbital wall fracture. Lateral orbital wall fracture. Superior, medial and inferior orbital wall fracture. All types of fractures can occur. And these are managed by titanium plates. Now other types of plates are also available, which can be used. The surgical management of orbital fracture, 3 basic guidelines are there when one should intervene. If there is a diplopia with positive FDT post-junction test, one needs to intervene, or if the anophthalmos is more than 2 millimeters, or if there is a large fracture involving more than 50% of the orbital floor. Immediate intervention for the orbital fractures is required if diplopia is there with entrapment of muscle or periorbital tissue, or if there is white eye blowout fracture, that is a blowout fracture, the orbital fracture with intact orbital rim. In the orbital wall fractures, one can wait and watch. If there is no significant anophthalmos, that is less than 2 millimeters, there is no marked hypoglobus, no entrapment of extraocular muscles of tissue, or fracture is less than 50% of the orbital floor, or there is lack of diplopia. But you have to continuously monitor these cases. You can't leave the cases. You have to monitor. And then coming to the intraorbital foreign bodies, as I told you earlier also, you have to weigh the risk of removal versus risk of retention of the foreign body. Usually the posteriorly located foreign bodies are difficult to remove and can be left alone if they are inert. For splinters, as I told you, as seen in the armed forces scenario, they are mostly sterile and inert. They are easy to localize, but they are difficult to remove. Small non-organic foreign bodies may be left in the orbit. However, again, the retained foreign bodies need to be regularly followed up for early detection of any complications and have to be managed accordingly. And you have to remove foreign body, the intra-orbital foreign body, if it is large or sharp-edged foreign body. If you have see the signs of infection, abscess or inflammation, if there is proptosis, restricted mobility, superficial palpable orbital foreign body, optic nerve compression is there is a suspicion of wood or vegetable matter, copper, steel, lead, iron foreign bodies need to be removed, and if there is fistula formation. So the summary of our protocol, and which is recommended worldwide also, is team evaluation for definitive protocol involvement, and CT scan during initial assessment and follow-up. Nowadays the reconstruction CT of less than 1 millimeter is very useful and essential for assessing the type of damage, mode of damage, and for rational planning of the treatment and follow-up. The simultaneous surgical intervention by various teams as required basis, maybe neurosurgeon, oculoplastic surgeon, maxillofacial surgeon, general surgeon, laparoscopic surgeon. It is required from case to case. And last but not the least, one should remove the foreign body only after balancing the risk due to injury against improvement without any surgery. Thank you so much.